JK on Drive. So this is brilliant. Danny says, JK, there are two genders. One is male and the second is female. Ryan, though, just Googled that, and apparently there's a website that says there are 72 genders. I honestly don't know what's become of the world. I'm getting older by the day. If you want to get honest, straight-talking brilliance, you speak to the director of campaigns at Sex Matters, a lady called Fiona McAnena, of which I go, hey, McAnena, how are you? She's back.
Hi, Jeremy.
Oh, God. I find myself literally morphing into my father on a daily basis on this programme. Fiona, welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we have this landmark case in Scotland where the Supreme Court is to hear a case on the definition of a woman. Help me out. What is a woman? It's an adult female... What is it? Human, is it? Is that right?
Well, this goes back to an effort that was made by the Scottish Government to increase the representation of women in public life. So they said, let's have a law that says that public boards, company boards, need to make more of an effort to have more women on their boards, and they wanted it to be 50-50. The problem was they said that a woman was anyone who identified as a woman. And they were taken to court by a group called For Women Scotland. And For Women Scotland won. The Scottish Government were told to think again. And then they had another go and said, it's female people, but it's also anyone who's got a certificate that says they're a woman. And as we know, that can be people who were men, who now have a certificate, a gender recognition certificate. So this case we're hearing today is the culmination of the battle by For Women Scotland. It's come all the way to the Supreme Court, so it matters for us all. It matters for equality law right across the UK, and it will decide whether women, female people, are allowed to exclude male people from places like domestic violence shelters, rape crisis shelters, whether lesbians are allowed to have actual lesbian gatherings that don't have to admit a man who says he's a woman.
And this is really interesting because on the same day, J.K. Rowling, who I think is incredible, has criticised British Transport Police, I mean, this is why my mouth just drops open, for rules that allow transgender officers to strip search women. So I want to ask you, you're about women's rights, and I've talked very vocally about how important that is. What I don't understand, Fiona, and I mean this genuinely, is all the people that jump up and down, apart from Sex Matters, right, about women's rights, seem to morph into idiocy when it comes to transgender. That Isla Bryson in Scotland was patently a man who raped two women. If a British Transport Police transgender person is going through and is still a man physically, then how is that right? Why are these people who jump on this bandwagon suddenly not even considering women's rights, whether it's toilets, whether it's sport, like Sharon Davis says? Where does that come from? Because it doesn't make sense to me.
No, a couple of things there. First of all, they're always men. No one can change sex. But some people may present as if they're women. And, you know, if people want to indulge them, that's up to them. The point is, they don't get to enforce that on everyone else. But what seems to have happened is they've been very successful in centering their needs, and particularly in telling women, and some women agreeing, that we need to take more care of these distressed trans-identifying males than we do of our own needs, and indeed our daughters and our sisters and our mothers.
How does a woman then, let me ask you this, I'm thinking of a particular friend of mine, and I'm not going to name her, but how does a woman who has dedicated a large part of her life, quite rightly, to women's rights, is blinded by this transgender argument, and I repeat the question, suddenly a woman who might be in prison in Scotland, who would be liable to Isla Bryson, who's still a man, you only had to look at the trousers, or gets into trouble and is strip searched by an officer who's transitioning but is still patently a man. I mean, look at that story today. Did you see this? A footballer who missed a major tournament because of high testosterone levels has been voted as the BBC Women's Footballer of the Year. What does that say to female footballers who have struggled and trained for 10 years? They're there clapping. Why are they not going, this is unfair?
Yeah. I mean, all these things point to why we need this case today, why we need everyone to wake up and say, everyone's rights matter. Of course, those people matter too, but so do women and girls. You're asking why some women go along with it. That is the big question. But I think that sometimes it's for an easy life. Sometimes it's because they've been pushed very hard. In Scotland, there was a big push from the government that if you wanted public funding for certain things, if you wanted to run rape crisis centres, for example, that was much easier if you said you were trans-inclusive, meaning that you would go along with these males who turned up and said they were women. So it takes courage and resistance to say no, and especially when you know that you're saying no to a man.
Sex Matters is about women's rights. Do you get a lot of abuse as an organisation?
Well, we do, but we're about everyone's rights, Jeremy. Yeah. We're about exactly what you've just been talking about, which is to say, hold on a minute, let's just reset the balance here and let's think about who we need to centre in each situation. And when you're talking about women's prisons or women's sport, or indeed women's advancement in public life, you have to think about women. And if we're going to think about people with gender reassignment, people who feel they're in the wrong body, whatever they feel, that's a different set of people and they need different treatment. If they have needs, those should be considered, but not at the expense of particularly women and girls. And
that's the point, isn't it? I remember sort of being on the periphery of the argument about the toilet situation. I might have told you before, I went to Brighton University with my daughter, Ava, to see what it was like. And I'm sort of 59, I'm old, and I went and it said, everybody welcome. I didn't know where to... I went in the car park behind the car. I didn't know what to do. I'm not even making it... I didn't know what to do. And so, to me, sense would say male toilet, female toilet, transgender toilet. To me, I would say sport, male, female and transgender. Why is that deplored by this group of people? Why is that fundamentally unfair and wrong?
I mean, it's fundamentally unfair on women. I think, men don't really face any kind of a penalty for this, apart from the situation you've described, where actually male privacy's also gone. And also, I'm sure you were thinking of the privacy of your daughter and the other girls in that place. Yeah. And that's what decent men think. They think, hold on a minute, we have to accommodate everyone. That doesn't mean riding roughshod over the needs of women and girls in order to validate the feelings and the sensitivities of people who are uncomfortable with their birth sex. So there are solutions. In some sports, the solution is open and female. There are ways around this. We do not have to trash the rights of everyone in order to accommodate those few people.
I have to say, I love having you on McAnena. Hey, McAnena, Fiona McAnena, thank you very much indeed. Director of Campaigns at an organisation that God speaks sense. Sex Matters. Well, that was a busy first hour.